All right, so now let's talk about how to use a gate for a very specific purpose. So the gate plugin, let me grab it here and put it on my lead vocal track. Every DAW has a gate plugin built in. You can use a gate to get that gated reverb effect, right? You often hear that on 80s snare drums and things like that. But you can use a gate in a really cool way, almost as like an automated version of what we did earlier when we talked about getting rid of the gaps and the spaces between the vocal lines. This is an automated form of that, and it's a faster workflow form of that. Again, like I mentioned then, I think especially if you're just starting out, go ahead and do it manually. Don't bother with a gate. However, the more comfortable you get and the better you get at all of these skills and production and mixing and editing, you can absolutely start to implement using a gate. That way you don't have to always do that. And I especially love using the gate if it's background vocals, right? Where it's not as important if the gate doesn't work perfectly as far as opening and closing. And we'll dive into and I'll show you exactly what I mean when I say that. So here is the vocal. Now, notice how this bar right here, this yellow bar, it's compressing it. So the gate is a form of a compressor, basically. It just acts in a little bit of a different way because, as you can see, we've got attack, release knobs, just like a compressor. Now, as of right now, it is turning down this lead vocal track by 18 dB. Why is it doing that? Well, that's because of what we have it set at. Notice how when I click play,
clearly the world has gone mad. We're probably
notice,
over
right?
our skis. Just
Let me exaggerate this and go, that way you can really see this work.
a little escape with.
Yeah, let's solo this vocal.
Clearly the world has gone mad. We're probably over our skis. Just a little.
So think of this as an automated volume fader, right? Think of this as just one of these faders right here. It automatically, as soon as the vocal is done with a line, or more accurately, as soon as the volume of the track that the gate plugin is on, as soon as that volume reaches or comes below a certain threshold, then it shoots the volume all the way down. That way, those little spaces and gaps, right? And those AC noise or lip smacks, whatever might be in between the lines, it just completely turns the volume down in an automated way.
Clearly the world has gone mad.
So then it activates,
Probably over our
goes back up,
skis.
and it activates again,
Just a little.
right? And then it shoots it down. So it's a super fast workflow. Let me bring the range back up here. It doesn't need to be all that. I like to keep it around 20 or 30. Now, the important part here is attack and release, because notice what happens, and this is why, again, I recommend, especially if you're just starting out, to do this manually on your lead vocal, especially. Just go in and make the cuts and do fade in and fade out on the individual clips, right? Because if you don't know how to use a gate properly, it might sound more like this.
Clearly the world
Right? There's no breath. You didn't hear it.
We're probably over
It just completely got rid of the breath
our skis.
because I have the attack setting too fast. Yeah, and then you got that short breath because of how fast the gate is working. You want the gate to work a bit more smoothly and open and close in a more fluent manner, right? So let's bring the attack back up to about 250 milliseconds.
A little
right?
escape with some rain.
And then release also needs to be higher.
Your head. Time moves slow.
Because also, if the release is super fast, then this will shoot it down as soon as the phrase ends.
Oh, time moves fast. It's a crazy adventure.
Right? It just shot it down really quickly, which isn't what you want either. And then the hold is kind of like the release. I honestly don't know exactly why these plugins have a hold feature. I'm not that sophisticated with these. I just mess around with it until it sounds good. Sue me. I don't even care.
Through wildfires and flat tires, still there's this feeling stuck.
Oh, I just put it in the middle and sounds good to me, right? So you can adjust the threshold. Now let's move to the threshold knob here. The threshold is important as well because this basically tells where the threshold is set at. Is as soon as the vocal is done singing between the lines, as soon as the volume of that track reaches this level, then it tells the gate to shoot it down once it reaches this low, right?
Inside of my
Like if I have it up here, then it's always...
and it hits me like, think I'm losing my grip.
Right, then it's just completely wonky. If it's too far down, then it's never going to activate it.
My grip, in my love.
Or barely, right? It takes too long.
And maybe I'm just too cynical, but honestly, I don't know how to do it. How do we? Clearly, the world has gone mad. We're probably over our skis, just a little.
Right? So that is how you use a gate. As you can see, it's a bit technical, right? And that's why, one more time, I don't like to use this, especially if you're a beginner. Just go ahead on your lead vocal and do what I showed you and actually go in and adjust the clips like this with the fade outs and the fade ins rather than using a gate. But having this knowledge and having the capability and the ability of using a gate can be incredible for just workflow and using it on background vocals and tracks that aren't as obvious in the mix can be it's great for workflow and it's great for speed. So definitely recommend that you learn how to use a gate effectively and in a way that sounds good. So that is how you use a gate on your vocals to get rid of the gaps and the spaces or to turn them down like an automated volume fader.